Hello everyone, I am Titanic Sized Reviews, where I review movies, shows, and video games. And today I am talking about the Dungeons & Dragons movie. This movie has a few actors you may know, a few you may not. The two biggest ones probably being Chris Pine, best known for Star Trek, I think. He's also in Wonder Woman. And Michelle Rodriguez, who's in the Fast and the Furious movies. You got a few other characters, not as well known, but you may have seen them in some things, like Sophia Lillis in It, and Justin Smith in some other movies I know I've seen him in, but can't remember. Probably very mediocre. Doesn't matter, I don't think he's a bad actor. I just don't remember them. These four people that I mentioned are the main characters of this movie. And before I get into it, there are going to be spoilers. Probably a decent amount. If you don't want any spoilers, you might want to stop watching now. I completely understand. So this movie starts out with Ed Gein, who is Chris Pine, and Holga, Michelle Rodriguez, in a prison. An ice prison, like a giant tower. Holga is supposed to be a barbarian. If you're going based off classes in normal D&D. I'm not entirely sure what Chris Pine is supposed to be. He has a lute, but he's not exactly a bard because he doesn't really do anything with the lute. I mean, he doesn't really do anything in general throughout the whole movie. He's just useless. It's kind of sad. But we'll get to more of that. So it starts out in a prison. They just show some random prisoner. Holga beats up the prisoner real quick. Me personally, I didn't really like her being a barbarian because she's pretty short. And most barbarians I always think of tall. Even if she was a woman, I would think of a tall barbarian, not someone of her size. She's not as tall as her co-star, Sophia Lillis, who plays Doric, who is a tiefling. And in case you don't know what a tiefling is, it's basically like half devil, usually half elf or half human, I believe. It's been a while since I've played D&D myself, so I do know some D&D lore, which is why I was kind of looking forward to this movie. And then you have Justin Smith, who plays Simon. He is a sorcerer. So Chris Pine, Ed Gein, and Holga are in the prison trying to give their case on why they shouldn't be locked up anymore, and they kind of tell you how they got there in the first place, which gives you a little bit more lore into what's going to be happening throughout the movie. Ed Gein is the only one who really talks during that moment, tells the story of how they got locked up, how they had some friends, which are Simon the Sorcerer, another guy, Forge, who I'll talk about a little bit more later, and another chick, Sophina, I believe is her name, who's a witch. You've seen her in the trailers, most likely. She's red, bald. So he tells the story, and they escape from the prison, go back home to try to find Ed Gein's daughter, which is a part of the story. Honestly, that's kind of the whole premise. Ed Gein was trying to do something to bring back his wife who had passed away due to his own actions, leaving his child without a mother. And he gets caught in the process, which is why he gets locked up. Him and Holga are the only two that get caught in that situation. They go back to the house, find out some information, find out that Forge, this other man who's with them, who is a con man, he mentions early on in the movie, Forge the con man becomes kind of like a king. He becomes like leader of this city. Forgot the name of the city. And he throws a festival. He's going to be throwing a festival that's supposed to be very violent, that got shut down because it was too violent. Well, when they get there, they see his daughter. She's not really happy to see the dad. She's happy to see Holga, who she considers an aunt. She considers Forge her uncle. And she's just mad, walks away during a conversation. Forge captures them with Sofina's help because he betrays them and spreads lies about Edgin and to his daughter, Kira. After they're captured, they're almost executed, but Holga saves her and Edgin from death. Edgin, of course, doesn't do anything. I'm going to get more into that because there's just a whole thing about how useless the main male characters are. The main male characters being Edgin and Simon. They're the top two. They don't really do anything. They're completely useless pretty much throughout the whole movie. Simon has a few moments where he's not a complete waste. Edgin, though, he just talks. Doesn't really do anything else. I'll get more into that, though. Like I said, some background to why those characters are so useless. Well, they escape. They decide they need to go find Simon so they can get some help and try and save Edgin's daughter from Forge. So they get Simon. Simon recommends a friend that he had that he was trying to date that might be able to help them, and that is Doric, or Sophia Lillis, the chick from It. She is the druid. You may have seen her in the trailer. She is the owl bear. She comes in, just destroys a whole, I don't know, garrison, I guess would be the proper word for this, perhaps, of soldiers, and just saves some chick tied to a tree. They meet her, ask her to come. She's a tiefling, says she hates humans, calls them liars, agrees to do it as long as they'll help get rid of the soldiers in the forest. So the next thing that happens is she sneaks into the castle to find this vault because they are looking for this tablet that got Edgin and Holga captured. It's there in the vault, they believe. And there's just this whole scene of her kind of just changing into animals. First she's a fly, then she's a rat, and then she's a rat again, I believe. Maybe it's not a rat again. She turns into a hawk after that. Then she turns into a terror bird, I think is what it's called. And then she turns into a deer. It's just a whole moment of her just running around this castle, trying to escape these bad guys. I don't know how the main bad guy, Sofina, manages to get out of this huge castle down to the very bottom area where people live so fast. Doric makes sense because she falls out the window, and that's when she turned into the hawk. But how Sofina got there, no idea. That part's just, I don't know, it's just kind of dumb. He also doesn't really try very hard to chase her after she finds out that she's one of those terror bird things before she turns into a deer. She just lets her guards do it. It was kind of confusing and weird, but whatever. So after she escapes, she tells her companions, Edgin, Holga, and Simon about it, and how there's like a ward blocking this magical door and they need to find a way in. And Simon says there's no way in, and then someone brings up a story about this magic helmet and how this one character, who you'll meet a little bit later, Zenk, gets it. So they go and they talk to some dead people to find out some information. That part's kind of funny, I guess. This movie has a lot of jokes. A lot. Most of them do not land. Most of them are not very funny. A few of them are, most of them aren't. Well, they go to find out about these dead people in the helmet because they were there during this war that was going on. The war scenes are very short, by the way. They don't show a whole lot. They just show how these people die real quick. They're semi-violent, I guess I would describe it that way, because not a lot happens there. It's just short little moments, them showing how this dude Zenk got the helmet. So they go to look for Zenk. Zenk has the helmet. He takes them down to this almost like underworld area. There's one joke right there that I actually liked, and that's when these like brain monsters, which I forgot what they are called. I never had to deal with those in my campaign, so I can't really speak on what those are. But they seek out the most intelligent people, and they just kind of walk right past them. And Chris Pine's like, well, that kind of hurt a bit. That was kind of funny. It was very obviously coming, but it was kind of funny. So they get this helmet. Some assassin dudes show up who were sent by Sofina, and they fight Zenk alone. Zenk fights them alone. It's honestly the only like real fight where dudes fight. The rest are women beating up dudes, such as Holga and Doric. Yeah. So after he fights them and wins against like 7 dudes, one main dude who's there that Sofina sent, the leader, they just get right back up because they're undead. I don't know how the main dude, the leader, got back up just as fast as his minions, because they all decided to get up at the exact same time. I don't know if there's some kind of like spell on those characters to where that's just how they work. But after he killed the small dudes, they just, like I said, they just all got back up at the exact same time as their leader. It was kind of weird. I don't know why they waited so long. I'm just gonna assume that there's a spell on them all. That's all I can go with. So they decide to run. They try to get away, and they come across a very fat dragon. I actually really liked that part. That was my favorite part of the whole movie. Zenk fighting those dudes was kind of cool. I was in that area finally beginning to think, oh, hey, maybe this movie's interesting and entertaining. Because I didn't feel that way for the rest of it, for the beginning of the movie. Well, they come up to this dragon. This dragon is super fat, kind of funny. It slides at them, trying to eat them, which I didn't mind. It reminded me of Dark Souls and the Gaping Dragon. He also does some rolls to the side to try to like crush them, also like the Gaping Dragon. I really like Dark Souls, so for me, I didn't really care, even though I was still a little confused about how this dragon was so chubby. He was a fat dragon. It was just weird because he's in the underground. I don't understand why so many people went to him to get eaten, but whatever. The dragon basically finishes off these undead dudes by eating them. Chases after them. They manage to escape. They get the helmet. Zenk leaves on his way. You don't see him again till like the very end for one little moment where he walks up to a dude. I'm not going to say who right now. But they get the helmet. Simon's the only one who can wear it because he's a sorcerer, so he tries to put it on. Just gets knocked on his ass a bunch. Eventually, he uses it in the moment when he needs to, when they're breaking in. They also do this little trick in the movie that I thought was clever, because they get this portal staff in the underground area that only he can use as well. So that way they can try to get into the vault in case the helmet doesn't work. I liked that. I thought that was clever. Well, they get captured again, but this time it's all of them getting captured by Sofina. And they get put in this this game event that's going to happen because Edgin recommends it so that way they have a chance to survive. Plus, they know that games are violent and hard. And Sofina agrees. Forge just goes with it. They fight in the arena. Well, not really fight. They run from these displacer beasts, which are panthers, basically, with these weird tentacle things that kind of make copies of themselves that are almost like holograms. That's the easiest way to describe it. They're a pretty cool creature in D&D. There's a moment with a mimic in there. There's also a moment with a gelatinous cube, which turns things, basically melts them. I liked those little parts because it was showing some real D&D lore there. Compared to a lot of the other stuff in the movie, I didn't really feel a whole lot of lore. Well, obviously they escape this maze thing. And they go after Forge, who's trying to escape with all the money that he got from the rich people who showed up for this event. Sofina stays behind because her real goal is to, well, destroy the city. Forge knew that. They had a deal. So he just tries to leave with the money and his, who he considers a niece, Kira. But Edgin, Holgan, Doric, and Simon show up. They beat up the guards. And by them, I mean Holga and Doric, obviously. Edgin and Simon don't really do jack. They knock out Forge, steal his boat. They come back when they see what Sofina's doing. They let all the gold go to the citizens. Sofina, by the way, has been talking to an evil wizard from the past, who is a red wizard just like her, who killed a whole bunch of people, basically became the first necromancer. And she's trying to do the same thing. I don't know if she's trying to bring him back to life or not. They're kind of like iffy about that. She just kind of has a conversation with him. But she wants that whole arena full of the people for that exact event. But they all leave due to the gold. They don't leave for some weird reason because they see her floating in the middle with a bunch of like black cloud and red type of tentacle clouds. That's the best way I can describe it, coming down. That's not really why they leave. They all leave because of the gold. And she gets super mad, obviously, at the main characters and goes after them. So they have their little fight at the end there. It's okay. It's an alright fight. Again, though, Simon and Edgin don't really do anything. Like, Simon has like this moment where he's like using a giant hand against this giant hand that she has, but he's just getting whipped. He's useless. Edgin, he doesn't do anything because he's got a loot. Doesn't fight really. It's Holga and Doric doing all the fighting. Basically doing everything. Very annoying. I didn't really like that because of that. And if you know about this movie, then you know that the movie intentionally tries to emasculate its leading men. The directors who made this movie said that. For D&D, an audience mostly made up of dudes, probably 90% men, right? If we're being honest, if not more, of men. And they're just trying to emasculate them. And they did. They really did. Because the two main dudes, Edgin and Simon, don't do anything. Basically the whole movie. They're just there to talk. Simon's like a huge wimp the whole movie. Holga's supposed to be the badass. Doric is, I don't know, she can turn into beast, which is cool. She's a druid, basically. He is a druid. Turns into an owlbear. You know, they fight Sofina. They beat up Sofina. They kind of do a Marvel moment where Sofina is just getting smashed into the ground like Hulk with Loki. I assume it was, I don't know, just to get some points, to be funny. Again, like I said, they're trying to do like a lot of comedy in this movie. Most of it's coming from Edgin with his words. Some of it's from Holga. Simon's just like a simpy dork the whole time. Dork actually doesn't say a whole lot. She has her moments, but none of it's really like comedic, which is fine. I don't know. But Sofina, who's like an undead witch, they'll say wizard in the movie. She's a witch, obviously. She's female. And they beat her up. But even after they beat her up, they're not exactly clear on whether or not if she's dead, because she gets crushed by some like rocks. I don't know how that means she's dead entirely. Like, she's undead, kind of. You see it as well. She's kind of undead, like the assassins that were sent. She shows her like skull face, but she has this bracelet on her that like stops her powers. But she's literally getting crushed by an owl bear. I don't know how she survived that. And then somehow gets crushed by the rocks. Like, it's just weird. I don't think it really fits. It doesn't really make a lot of sense right there. I'm just kind of confused when I watch it. That's basically how the movie ends. They go on to celebrate. The old king of that city or whatever wakes up, pardons them from their prison escape, and gives them medals like a Star Wars scene. The bad guy Forge gets captured by Zenk and put in that exact same prison as the main characters. Again, I don't know if Sofina's dead or not. I guess it doesn't really matter. She lost. But that's basically it. Overall, what I think of this movie is that it's boring. Legitimately, I think it's a boring movie for most of the time. Not all of the time, but most of the time, I was just bored. I haven't been to the movie theaters in over a year. I went to go see this one, and I kind of regret it. The movie was boring. The few parts that I liked were the underground part with the dragon and him fighting the assassins, and the maze. I liked the maze. The maze part's pretty short, though. Other than that, the rest of the movie, pretty boring. I didn't feel super entertained. I didn't like what they were doing with the male characters. I'm not a huge fan. I'm definitely not going to watch this movie again. I still don't think it's like a bad movie, despite how I feel about it. I don't think it's a good movie, though, either. I think it's a very mediocre movie that just tries to shit on men, push feminism. Yeah, it's just mediocre. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. If you liked the video, please click subscribe, like, maybe share the video. I sure would appreciate it. Again, haven't been to the movies in over a year. I spent my money on this. It would help me out a little bit. Thank you so much. You have a good day.